In a previous audio, I discussed overly attached parents, and I gave you a case in point. Well, kids, it's your turn. And we're talking about, when I say kids, we're talking about young adults. We're talking about people designated by law who are on a path to self-discovery and who are mentally capable of taking care of themselves. We're talking about young adults. We're talking about people of reproductive age and responsibility. That's who we're talking about. What you need to do, if your 60 or 70 or 80-year-old parent or guardian, the person who raises you, wants to get themselves a companion, you enjoy it and be happy for them. Unless you have proof that that person that they're involved in is going to be trouble for them and cause a lot of pain or potentially put them in danger, then I could totally understand. But other than that, sit down somewhere. Sit down somewhere and let that person enjoy themselves. Their responsibility of taking care of you is over. They're living in an empty house. What do you expect them to do? Just sit by the phone or sit by the computer and just wait for you to call on them every time you have a problem? You got to join us in the real world, people. You got to join us in the real world. Now, there was a time when my mother died where my father took up with a couple of people. One person he got involved with, that didn't last very long, but I kind of figured that, so I knew that wasn't going to be a threat. But eventually he wound up getting a companion, and he stayed with her for several years. And I was feeling a certain type of way. But I had to realize, and that was the first time I realized, is that my father was actually a man. Your mother was a woman before she even met you. No matter how young she was, she had you. She was either a woman or developing woman. And your father was either a man or a developing man before you came along. You have to understand that they didn't start life when you were born. They started life before you were born. They had to have, because they wouldn't have been able to conceive you if they weren't living. There's nothing wrong with being protective over your parents. But if you're going to sit there and be disrespectful to your parents every time they want to date someone or get involved in a relationship, or you just want to be look slick and disrespectful, or give them a silent treatment, that's another one that people do. Give them the silent treatment or distance yourself because you don't want them to pay attention to anybody else. You're not there for them to pay attention to. They can't make themselves available to you all the time. Come on now, that's being a little childish and a little selfish. Now you got to grow up a little bit. And I'm going to throw something else out there at you. When you started to date as a teenager, think about all those wet animals and strays that you brought in from the outside to the house talking about you in love. And your parents had to sit down and look at it. They had thoughts and ideas too, especially if your father was in the picture. Oh my gosh, I'm sure your father had some ideas about that. I have those memories. I remember some of the things I brought home. Some of them were nice and some of them were like, oh my God. But that's basically everybody's story. But I was a teenager. I wasn't grown. I was just learning. We're talking about your parents who are grown and they had lives before you came along. And you mean to tell me you're going to tell them who they need to see and who they don't need to see? Okay, there's going to be a time where you want some privacy and you're going to build a family of your own. Now, do you want that person all up in your business all the time because they don't go out and see anybody, they don't get involved, they're not social or anything else, they don't have anything else better to do? Do you want them up in your business all the time? Like in Dora on Bewitched. For those of you who don't know about Bewitched, look at Darren's mother-in-law. She would literally just pop up whenever she wants to and meddle because she was a witch. And that's how some of his parents are. But part of them are that way because you stood in the way of them having a life. And they just giving up on the whole idea because they know that you don't like the idea of them being social. You don't like the idea of them being human. So when that starts to happen, you think about your role in that. Now, what you need to do is go ahead and accept the fact that, first of all, your mother was a woman. I'm sorry. Your mother was a woman, and your father was a man, and there's natural order, and there is a desire to be, have companionship and to be social. No, I'm not talking about having sex all the time. Get your minds out the gutter. So chill out. Look, if your mama goes to the Knights of Columbus every Wednesday night for bingo and she happens to meet Mr. James, Mr. James was probably trying to talk to your mama for the past 6 months. But your mama was a little reluctant because she knew how you were. And finally, her patience ran out, and she said, you know what, the next time Mr. James, and I see him at bingo and he wants to sit next to me or he wants to buy me a drink or pay for my bingo package, I'm going to let Mr. James come on over and do that, and we're going to spend some time together. And guess what happens the following Wednesday? She goes to bingo and Mr. James is there. Mr. James is a slick little gangster, too. Well dressed. Got that polo cologne on. Got them Stacey Adams and them gators. Child, Mr. James is looking good now. Mr. James is sweet. Mr. James has a few honeys that like him, but Mr. James likes your mama. They spend time together, and then after bingo, it's a little late, and they're all riled up, and they say, you know what, I'm a little hungry. I don't want to be eating those little chicken wings and french fries in the bingo hall isn't enough. Let's go somewhere. So they wind up having dinner at Denny's and they have a good time, and then they wind up spending time together. Who knows what'll happen? But notice how happy your mother is after that. Women have to feel beautiful. I don't care if they're 8, 80, or 18. There's no expiration date on a woman wanting to feel special. There is no expiration date. Every woman wants to feel attractive. And men are the number one people who can do it. They are. So if Mr. James makes your mother feel good, that good feeling can transfer over into your relationship with her. See, you got to think about these things strategically. See, y'all young people don't know how to strategize. Y'all got to strategize. What you need to do, my mother told me a long time ago, God rest her soul, you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. But y'all sitting up here sipping on vinegar like it's a 40 ounce. No. You got to ease in there. Ease in there. If mama's happy, then everybody's happy. If daddy's happy, then everybody's happy. Let them be happy, okay? Let them be happy. There's nothing wrong with it. Besides, there's going to be a time where you're going to have a family of your own and you're going to be preoccupied. Now, do you want some busybody out up in your business because they don't have anybody? Let them enjoy their life. Leave them alone. You'll thank me for this one. Just saying.